4 years ago. This is Trump addresses nation.
President Trump at Fort Myer, Virginia.
This is Donald Trump streamed August 21st, 2017. Good. Yes, good.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Please be seated.
Oh, God, the breathing.
Vice President Pence, Secretary of State Tillerson.
People who I will grow to hate and despise, and one who I will direct my supporters to possibly hang, and everyone else in attendance.
Members of the Cabinet.
Which are empty right now. The cupboards are bare. There's no one in them.
General Dunford. Deputy Secretary Shanahan.
Shanahan. It's like, never has there been a better day to go back and look at a Trump speech than the day we leave Afghanistan. Sorry, what was that again?
General Dunford.
Uh-huh.
Deputy Secretary Shanahan.
Shanahan.
General Dunford. Deputy Secretary Shanahan. And Colonel Duggan.
Give me some easy names. Just leave Shanahan's name on. Shanahan.
Most especially, thank you to the men and women of Fort Myer and every member of the United States military at home and abroad. We send our thoughts and prayers to the families of our brave sailors who were injured and lost after a tragic collision at sea, as well as to those conducting the search and recovery efforts. I am here tonight to lay out our path forward in Afghanistan.
This ought to be good.
And South Asia. But before I provide the details...
Yeah, it was a total twofer, by the way. Like, we handled it. It's all handled.
...of our new strategy.
By the way, this is where he lays out his plan.
I want to say a few words to the service members here with us tonight, to those watching from their posts, and to all Americans listening at home. Since the founding of our republic, our country has produced a special class of heroes.
Jesus Christ. This is back when he was just learning to deal with the teleprompter. His son does the same thing. It's a technique the guys on The Apprentice taught him, which is touch your fingers on the words we have underlined so that you know to pace yourself.
Whose selflessness, courage, and resolve is unmatched in human history. American patriots from every generation have given their last breath on the battlefield for our
and he would later go on to ask what was in it for them, and be kind of and say wonderful things about POWs, for example.
Nation and for our freedom. Through their lives,
it says look at camera for the word freedom.
And though their lives.
What was that again?
Through their lives, and though their lives were cut short.
It's both. It's both. Through their lives were cut short, and though their lives were cut short. It's both. Though their lives and through their lives. Through their lives and though their lives.
And though their lives were cut short. In their deeds, they achieved total immortality. By following the heroic example of those who fought to preserve our republic, we can find the inspiration our country needs.
This is from August 2017.
To unify, to heal, and to remain one nation under God. The men and women of our military operate as one team with one shared mission and one shared sense of purpose. They transcend every line of race, ethnicity, creed, and color to serve.
What kind of woke general bullshit is this? Somebody get Don Jr. to do a video. He just said something about every race and every creed working together. Some bullshit woke nonsense. What?
Together and sacrifice together in absolutely.
What's he doing? Flicking a booger on the fucking crowd?
Cohesion. That is because all service members are brothers and sisters. They're all part of the same family. It's called the American family.
Well, they're American soldiers, one would think. They do belong to a very special group of people, and that's clearly people that either don't have bone spurs or have them and serve anyways.
They take the same oath, fight for the same flag, and live according to the same law. They are bound together by common purpose, mutual trust, and selfless devotion to our nation and to each other. The soldier understands what we as a nation too often forget, that a wound inflicted upon a single member of our community is a wound inflicted
Their community.
Upon us all.
By the way, my love and support to all the people who served in Afghanistan, some of which are sitting in this audience and they were sent on another deployment and would have continued to be sent on deployments no matter what if this asshole was to get his way. But tonight he's going to bullshit everyone about what he's going to do. This is, again, from 2017.
One part of America hurts, we all hurt. And when one citizen suffers an injustice.
Well, unless that's being put on a ventilator, in which case a big portion of the Republican Party will believe that those people were just, it's just the price of doing business. You can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs, right, America?
We all suffer together. Loyalty to our nation demands loyalty to one another. Love for America requires love for all of its people. When we open our hearts to patriotism,
Jesus Christ.
There is no room for prejudice, no place for bigotry, and no tolerance for hate.
What kind of woke bullshit? Again, how?
Young men and women we send to fight our wars abroad deserve to return to a country that is not at war with itself at home. We cannot remain a force for peace in the world if we are not at peace with each other.
Really? This aged well. January 6th.
As we send our bravest to defeat our enemies overseas, and we will always win.
Seize, not cease. And we don't always win. The goal is to fight valiantly. In some cases, there's nothing to be won. This isn't going very well.
Let us find the courage to heal our divisions within. Let us make a simple promise to the men and women we ask to fight in our name, that when they return home from battle, they will find a country that has renewed the sacred bonds of love and loyalty that unite us together as one. Thanks to the vigilance and skill of the American military.
Oh, so we should hope that, like, when they're serving overseas or when they come back home, that shitholes like Greg Kelly shouldn't be able to be to downplay their sacrifice and the work that they do just because he doesn't like who's the commander-in-chief. Okay, good. Okay, good.
And of our many allies throughout the world, horrors on the scale
The horror. The horror.
September 11th, and nobody can ever forget that, have not been repeated on our shores. But we must acknowledge the reality I am here to talk about tonight.
Here we go. We're going to acknowledge the reality of why we have to get out of Afghanistan or stay in, or get out and then stay in, or stay in but get out, or get out but stay in.
15 years after September 11th attacks, after the extraordinary sacrifice of blood and treasure, the American people are weary of war.
Yeah, they just want to get out. Look right in that camera. Sell it. The American people are weary of war. Booger for you. Booger for you.
Victory. Nowhere is this more evident than with the war in Afghanistan.
Weary of war without victory, and nowhere is this more evident than in Afghanistan. And the heavy breathing, Jesus.
Longest war in American history, 17 years. I share the American people's frustration.
Do you, though? Because at this point, you hadn't gotten us out, and for the next 3 years, you're not going to.
I also share their frustration.
Yes, their frustration. Frustrations are a certain kind of, they're like a cross between a clam and a sea bass. They're delicious, but they bite when you catch them.
Over a foreign policy that has spent too much time, energy, money, and most importantly, lives, trying to rebuild countries in our own image instead of pursuing our security interests above all other considerations. That is why, shortly after my inauguration, I directed Secretary of Defense Mattis and my national security team to undertake a comprehensive review of all strategic options in Afghanistan.
All of them. All of them.
South Asia. My original instinct was to pull out.
If only Fred. Sorry.
And historically, I like following my instincts. But all my life, I've heard that decisions are much different when you sit behind the desk in the Oval Office. Words, when you're president of the United States.
Oh, I see. I thought anybody who sat behind the desk could just make those decisions and they had to be carried out. I didn't think it was a constitutional office. I thought it was a magic desk. That was my bad. Fucking hell. In other words. That literally, there are a bunch of his followers going, wait a minute. If we break in and just sit behind the desk, anything I say becomes law? Oh, buddy.
So I studied Afghanistan in great detail. And from every...
How many people believe that shit? Studied Afghanistan in great detail. Rattle off some names, buddy. Just avoid ignore the teleprompter. Just go riff for a minute.
Conceivable angle. After many meetings over many months.
I'm surprised he didn't black out.
We held our final meeting last Friday.
Oh, no more meetings on Afghanistan ever. That's good.
Camp David with my cabinet.
Wait a minute. You retreated to Camp David to deal with something so as important as Afghanistan?
And generals to complete our strategy.
Very good. Here comes the completed strategy. Here it comes.
I arrived at three fundamental conclusions about
oh boy,
America's core interests in Afghanistan. First, our nation must seek an honorable and enduring outcome worthy of the tremendous sacrifices that have been made, especially the sacrifices of lives.
Right. So we stay in until we can secure a government and a military worthy of the sacrifice of those soldiers, whether or not the people of Afghanistan want that or can sustain that. Okay, so step one, stay forever.
The men and women who serve our nation in combat deserve a plan for victory. They deserve the tools they need and the trust they have earned to fight and to win.
And to win, a word I like, even though it's not in this things are grayer in life than you'd, ooh.
And the consequences of a rapid exit are both predictable and unacceptable.
Ah, there we go. Now, here we have it. So the May 1st deadline, for example, which would have, since they didn't prepare for it, if he'd have been in office, would have been a rapid exit, which they would have had to punt it again because they wouldn't have been prepared to do it. That he was aware at the time of the speech, after they had all their meetings, that when we leave, if it is over the course of something short of years, and even still getting down to 2,500 people and still taking those folks out would be catastrophic and unacceptable, meaning you're gonna stay.
9/11, the worst terrorist attack in our history, was planned and directed from Afghanistan.
Yeah, but the leader of Al-Qaeda was found in Pakistan, and larger portions of it now are in Yemen and Central Africa.
Because that country was ruled by a government that gave comfort,
Jesus Christ. That wasn't on my end. That was on their end.
shelter to terrorists. A hasty withdrawal would create a vacuum.
Define hasty. A hasty would be any time in the next 30 years.
That terrorists, including ISIS and Al-Qaeda,
Those are military flags behind them, somebody was asking, with like classification ribbons for who served and the different groups within them.
would instantly fill, just as happened before September 11th. And as we know, in 2011, America hastily and mistakenly withdrew from Iraq.
No. Mistakenly withdrew from Iraq.
The result, our hard-won gains slipped back into the hands of terrorist enemies. Our soldiers watched as cities they had fought for and bled to liberate and won.
Wow.
Occupied by a terrorist group called ISIS. The vacuum we created by leaving too soon gave safe haven for ISIS to spread, to grow, recruit, and launch attacks.
Attacks. He's starting to lose his upper plate. That whole like, Agabash America. That's the United States. When that happened, it's the same problem. He's getting dry mouth. His Adderall snort has not kicked in quite yet. It'll probably pick up midway through the speech, and he'll start like yammering.
We cannot repeat in Afghanistan the mistake our leaders made in Iraq.
Yeah, we should still be in Iraq.
Third and finally, I concluded that the security threats we face in Afghanistan and the broader region.
Yeah, you concluded this based on like who were you talking to in general? Just I'm just curious.
Immense. Today,
These guys and gals. There's Nikki Haley, Kellyanne Conway. Look at, remember this old cast of characters? Rex Tillerson, who would call him a stupid motherfucker. This dude who fucked his wife on the gold at Fort Knox. This asshole. Pompeo. I'll lose my finger disappears when I go past. No, it doesn't work.
20
Mick Mulvaney, who's no longer chief of staff, like he lost his job like within 6 months.
designated foreign terrorist organizations are active in Afghanistan and
What?
Afghanistan, the highest concentration in any region, anywhere in the world. For its part, Pakistan often gives safe haven to agents of chaos, violence.
Wait a minute. Chaos? Is there a reason why we don't have Maxwell Smart on the job? At least get us Agent 99.
The threat is worse because Pakistan and India are two nuclear-armed states whose tense relations threaten.
By the way, this is full-on proof that Trump, from the day he got into office during all this, continued to buy the bullshit that was being sold to president after president going through this, that Biden finally said, yeah, I hear you. No.
Spiral into conflict, and that could happen. No one denies that we have inherited a challenging and troubling situation in Afghanistan.
Oh, you're blaming your predecessor?
And South Asia, but we do not have the luxury of going back in time and making different or better decisions.
Oh, that's interesting. You don't?
When I became president, I was given a bad and very complex hand, but I fully knew what I was getting into. Big and intricate problems. But one way or another, these problems will be solved.
Yes, one of the ways is that you will leave it to Joe Biden 4 years from now to clean up.
Problem solver. And in the end,
I'm a problem solver. It didn't quite.
We will win.
Will you, though?
We must address the reality of the world as it exists right now.
Yeah. Don't touch me.
Threats we face.
Don't grab my shoulder. It's gross. I don't. My concern is I know where your hand has been.
The confronting of all of the problems of today and extremely predictable consequences of a hasty withdrawal.
Yeah, hasty. So, yeah, I would start the withdrawal now, and maybe in the next 4 years, you can leave it to whoever's in office after you.
We need look no further than last week's vile, vicious attack in Barcelona to understand that
It's pronounced Barcelona, and you should be able to pronounce it considering your teeth are slipping again.
terror groups will stop at nothing to commit the mass murder of innocent men, women, and children. You saw it for yourself. Horrible.
Horrible.
As I outlined in my speech in Saudi Arabia 3 months ago, America and our partners are committed to stripping terrorists of their territory, cutting off their funding, and exposing the false allure of their evil ideology.
The false allure of it? Look, kids, I know it might seem fun to, sneak off to the deserts of Afghanistan or Iraq and join ISIS, where if you misread the Taliban's, misread ISIS's view of Islam, you can, you'll probably end up with your head on a pole. But, it's a fad.
Terrorists who slaughter innocent people will find no glory in this life or the next.
Boom. No, this life, they're not going to get any girls. If the only person, right. This, God, I forgot all about this silly argument.
They are nothing but thugs and criminals and predators and, that's right, losers.
Yeah, that'll tell them. Losers.
Working alongside our allies.
Yeah, sniff really big after you say losers. It really accents it.
We will break their will, dry up their recruitment, keep them from crossing our borders, and yes, we will defeat them, and we will defeat them handily. In Afghanistan and Pakistan, America's interests are clear. We must stop the resurgence of safe havens that enable terrorists to threaten America.
This is exactly the argument you're hearing right now about not leaving. It's the same argument you heard every year about not leaving. The dude bought it like hook, line, and sinker. And this is, I mean, it's the same shit. 2017.
We must prevent nuclear weapons and materials from coming into the hands.
Weapons of mass destruction getting into the hands of the Taliban or Al-Qaeda is reason enough for us to stay in Afghanistan. Jesus.
Terrorists and being used against us or anywhere in the world, for that matter.
Yeah, for that matter.
But to prosecute this war, we will learn from history as a result of our comprehensive review.
I don't think you will, actually. I'm just, spoiler alert.
American strategy in Afghanistan and South Asia will change dramatically in the following ways.
Here it comes. The plan that everybody was talking about, the secret plan that Trump had to get us out of Afghanistan. This is 2017. Let's hear it.
A core pillar of our new strategy is a shift from a time-based approach to one based on conditions.
There you have it. Conditions, which were not met in 2017, were not met in 2018, were not met in 2019, were not met in 2020, would not have been met this year. Conditions instead of a timeline. This is what the generals told him. This is what he bought. This is what everybody who was like in the military who was conflating this or, like the conditions on the ground on our condition for relieving had to be overlap there because they knew the conditions could never be met.
Said it many times how counterproductive it is for the United States to announce in advance the dates we intend to begin or end military options.
Really? You mean like May 1st, 2021? Yeah? Just don't list the, just let the government go, hey, where the fuck's everybody going? And then hope it doesn't collapse.
We will not talk about numbers of troops or our plans for further military activities.
Yes, because people will be able to check and see that we are not actually making those deadlines.
Conditions on the ground, not arbitrary timetables, will guide our strategy from now on.
Which guaranteed we stayed. This is 2017.
America's enemies must never know our plans or believe they can wait us out. I will not say when we are going to attack, but attack we will. Another fundamental
just cause
of our new strategy
number
is
two,
the integration of all instruments of American power, diplomatic, economic, and military, toward a successful outcome. Someday, after an effective military effort, perhaps it will be possible to have a political settlement that includes elements of the Taliban.
Political settlement is a good way to describe it.
Afghanistan. But nobody knows if or when that will ever happen. America will.
Yeah, that you heard that, by the way. Perhaps there's a way to involve the Taliban in the government, but nobody knows when that'll happen.
Continue its support for the Afghan government and the Afghan military as they confront the Taliban in the field.
In the field.
Ultimately, it is up to the people of Afghanistan to take ownership of their future, to govern their society, and to achieve an everlasting peace.
Yeah, about that.
We're a partner and a friend, but we will not dictate to the Afghan people how to live or how to govern their own complex society.
Tell that to Dan Bongino. He's going to be very upset if he sees this.
are not nation building again. We are.
Well, we were, and you kept doing it. And Joe Biden isn't, but you did.
Terrorists. The next pillar of our new strategy is to change the approach and how to deal with Pakistan.
That's right, Pakistan. We've definitely shifted things with Pakistan. What's the Pakistan plan? Pakistan's the plan, man.
Can no longer be silent about Pakistan's safe havens for terrorist organizations, the Taliban.
Yeah, we got to get the fuck out of Afghanistan so we can get in Pakistan, baby.
Other groups that pose a threat to the region and beyond. Pakistan has much to gain from partnering with our effort in Afghanistan.
Yeah, and if they don't, we'll kill them. But they never do, and it's kind of a stupid side note.
It has much to lose by continuing to harbor criminals and terrorists. In the past, Pakistan...
Well, a lot of them, they catch a lot of them. You know, I don't know if you know this, but they caught one of the members of the Taliban who had coordinated attacks against U.S. soldiers and people. Like, he's a pretty vicious dude. And they put him in prison. And some asshole in 2020 lets him out and makes him the head of the Taliban. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Wouldn't it be lovely if you could go back in time and tell this asshole what happens? Oh, boy.
Has been a valued partner. Our militaries have worked together against common enemies. The Pakistani people have suffered greatly from terrorism and extremism. We recognize those contributions and those sacrifices. But Pakistan has also sheltered the same organizations.
Jesus Christ, what is with the mic at this gig?
That try every single day to kill our people. We have been paying Pakistan billions and billions of dollars. At the same time, they are housing the very...
The Taliban has all our shoe phones now.
Terrorists.
But do they have the quiet bubble or whatever the fuck that thing was?
You're fighting. But that will have to change, and that will change immediately.
Not so much.
Partnership can survive a country's harboring of militants and terrorists who target U.S. service members and officials. It is time for Pakistan to demonstrate its commitment to civilization, order, and to peace. Another critical part of the South Asia strategy for America is to further develop its strategic partnership with India.
Thank you. Yes, it was the cone of silence. I appreciate that. Yeah. We're almost through this. I would just like to, in answer to a lot of the Republicans who seem to have forgotten that this happened, in 2017. It's a nice reminder.
The world's largest democracy and a key security and economic partner of the United States. We appreciate India's...
Even Kellyanne Conway is getting bored. Hey, it's H.R. McMaster who will think that this whole... all of Trump's planning is bullshit, and he didn't like the deal and the conditions.
Contributions to stability in Afghanistan. But India makes billions of dollars in trade with the United States, and we want them to...
I'm seeing a sort of a consistent thread in this guy's fixation on things.
Help us more with Afghanistan, especially in the area of economic assistance and development. We are committed to pursuing our shared objectives for peace and security in South Asia and the broader
South Asia
Indo-Pacific region. Finally, my administration will ensure that you, the brave defenders of the American people, will have the necessary tools and rules of engagement to make this strategy work and work effectively and work.
Oh, it's going to work
quickly.
And work quickly, even though, a hurried exit is a bad idea politically and militarily.
Lifted restrictions the previous administration placed on our warfighters that prevented the Secretary of Defense and our commanders
from accidentally killing tens of thousands of Afghan civilians
field from fully and swiftly waging battle against the enemy. Micromanagement from Washington, D.C. does not win battles.
No. So when, like, let's say you're doing what about airlifts?
They're one in the field, drawing upon the judgment and expertise of wartime commanders and frontline soldiers, acting in real time with real authority and with a clear mission to defeat the enemy. That's why we will also expand authority for American armed forces to target the terrorist and criminal network.
Why is NPR or PBS NewsHour focusing on random soldiers?
That sow violence.
Honestly, did a stalker take this over?
And chaos throughout Afghanistan. These killers need to know they have nowhere to hide, that no place is beyond the reach of American might and American arms. Retribution will be fast and powerful as we lift restrictions and expand authorities in the field. We
will have more civilian deaths and therefore more blowback from a mission that from the very people that we are protecting.
Seeing dramatic results in the campaign to defeat ISIS, including the liberation of Mosul in Iraq. Since my inauguration, we have achieved record-breaking success in that regard. We will also maximize sanctions.
I just want you to know, as far as record-breaking success, biggest civilian airlift in history and successful by most measures. And then, of course, we're out of the Afghanistan war.
And other financial and law enforcement actions against these networks to eliminate their ability to export terror. When America commits its warriors to battle, we must ensure they have every weapon to apply swift, decisive, and overwhelming force.
Yeah, that's not so much the problem. We have a lot of that shit. The problem ends up being assholes like you still believing the same bullshit from a militaristic standpoint and keeping us in there.
Our troops will fight to win.
To win.
We will fight to win.
To win. What is that? What is this pronunciation?
Fight to win.
To win. Win.
We'll fight to win.
To win. We will fight to win.
From now on, victory will have a clear definition.
Never leave.
In our enemies, obliterating ISIS, crushing Al-Qaeda, preventing the Taliban from taking over Afghanistan.
The only way we can prevent Al-Qaeda, the Taliban from taking over Afghanistan is by staying forever. So that was the mission during the Trump presidency, just for the record.
Stopping mass terror attacks against America.
And fighting to win.
Before they emerge. We will ask our NATO allies and global partners to support our new strategy with additional troop and funding increases in line with our own. We are confident they will. Since taking...
Psst. Narrator. It turns out they didn't.
As I have made clear that our allies and partners must contribute much more money to our collective defense.
Yeah, but that's NATO. This has nothing to do with that. This is our own situation. You can't make them pay for Afghanistan because we decide to stay. They had all agreed to leave in 2016 based on the Obama plan, and then it didn't happen.
And they have done so. In this struggle, the heaviest burden will continue to be borne by the good people of Afghanistan and their courageous armed forces.
Well, who wants to tell them? You guys? You guys want to tell them? I don't necessarily want to tell them.
As the Prime Minister of Afghanistan has promised, we are going to participate in economic development to help defray the cost of this war to us.
Oh, I see. So beyond embassy staff and other folks that are there for diplomatic reasons, contractors working with the military to train the Afghan army so that they can eventually stand on their own, you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, that from this point forward, you are going to start introducing Americans into Afghanistan who will be there for economic development and will develop, industries or work with the existing industries like, I don't know, the opium trade and landmines. But those Americans and business people will be in Afghanistan from this point forward. And some of them, although they're not embassy staff and they don't necessarily want to leave, will be a part of slowing down our extraction out of Afghanistan if we ever decided to, I don't know, piss off.
Afghanistan is fighting to defend and secure their country against the same enemies who threaten us.
No, actually. Taliban sided with parts of al-Qaeda, but ISIS is really our biggest problem growing on the horizon. Never mind, he doesn't know this yet.
The stronger the Afghan security forces become, the less we will have to do.
Uh-huh.
Afghans will secure and build their own nation. Define their own future. We want them to succeed. But we will no longer use American military might to construct democracies in faraway lands or try to rebuild other countries in our own image. Those days are now over.
Are they now over? Because this is 2017, and I just don't feel, being in the future, that those days were over at any point during your presidency. Just for the record.
Instead, we will work with allies and partners to protect.
Yes, to get into Syria, claim parts of that, help Turkey kill a bunch of Kurds, abandon that territory, give a couple of bases to Russia, bomb an airstrip that nobody gives a fuck about, just to make a point, when we really just have to wait out Syria's demise because they're running out of water because the Turks are stealing it and they're going to end up fighting with... Never mind.
Shared interests. We are not asking others to change their way of life, but to pursue common goals that allow our...
We kind of are, if their way of life includes forced marriage of 12-year-old girls. We're kind of asking. We're not insisting. We're not staying forever to make sure, but I would say we're asking. If we're not asking, we should have been asking.
Children to live better and safer lives. This principled realism will guide our decisions moving.
I'm sorry, what? Principled what? Principled realism. Yeah, you heard it right, folks. 2017, Trump talking about his Afghanistan plan. Principled realism. Fabulous.
Forward. Military power alone will not bring peace to Afghanistan or stop the terrorist threat arising in that country.
No?
But strategically applied force aims to create the conditions for a political process to achieve a lasting peace.
Oh, yeah. This doesn't sound at all like the same fucking argument we heard for years.
America will work with the Afghan government as long as we see determination and progress.
Yeah, which was up till about, I would say, July 12th.
However, our commitment is not unlimited, and our support is not a blank check. The government of Afghanistan must...
If we could invade Afghanistan, I think a lot of us would feel very differently.
A blank check. The government of Afghanistan must...
Afghanistan. I mean, how's someone not made that movie?
Their share.
I have not checked Brazzers or Pornhub in a while. Perhaps they have.
The military, political, and economic burden.
Burden.
American people expect to see real reforms, real progress, and real results. Our patience is not unlimited.
Well, apparently it lasts the entirety of your presidency. Just letting you know. Again, spoiler alert. By the way, don't forget to give a thumbs up and a like, or a thumbs down if you don't like the show, because it doesn't matter to the algorithm. Trolls, it really does help us out. If you give us a thumbs down because we're reminding you of the bullshit he was slinging way back then, it's on you. But it helps the show no matter what.
We'll keep our eyes wide open in abiding by.
With eyes wide open, it's so damn dark in my ass. With eyes wide open.
The oath I took on January 20th, I will remain steadfast in protecting American lives and American interests.
64 service people lost their lives during his presidency.
This effort, we will make common cause with any nation that chooses to stand and fight alongside us against this global threat.
The Taliban or Al Qaeda or ISIS or threat of us not being in Afghanistan, I think.
Terrorists, take heed. America will never let up until you are dealt a lasting defeat.
Okay, we're never going to let up until they're dealt a lasting defeat. And since we can never prove when they've permanently been gotten rid of, then I guess we're fucking always going to be there. Okay.
My administration, many billions of dollars more is being spent on our military. And this includes vast amounts being spent on our nuclear arsenal and missile defense. In every generation, we have faced down evil, and we have always prevailed.
Well, not always. I mean, obviously, Vietnam was a turning point. So just, there's a lot of similarities here. I mean, and there's a lot about, part of the loss is in thinking that winning is possible. That's a little silly. You know what I mean? That if somebody tries to fight gravity, for example, did they really lose the fight with gravity, or was the fight itself futile to start with? It might have been a valiant effort, but yeah.
We prevailed because we know who we are and what we are fighting for. Not far from where we are gathered tonight, hundreds of thousands of America's greatest patriots lay in eternal rest at Arlington National Cemetery.
Cemetery. And most of you don't know that it's spelt with an H-E on the front. Cemetery.
There is more courage, sacrifice, and love in those hallowed grounds than in any other spot on the face of the earth. Many of those who have fought and died in Afghanistan enlisted in the months after September 11th, 2001.
And a lot of the people who will serve through your presidency weren't even born then.
They volunteered for a simple reason. They loved America.
By the way, 907 folks just on YouTube. Thanks, folks. Thank you for being with me today. I appreciate it. I know today's show is going long, but I thought this would be a nice addendum.
Determined to protect her. Now we must secure the cause for which they gave their lives. We must unite to defend America from its enemies abroad. We must restore the bonds of loyalty among our citizens at home. And we must achieve an honorable and enduring outcome worthy of the enormous price that's...
It's the second time he said that during this speech, which again is another example of him never planning to leave.
Many have paid. Our actions, and in months to come, all of them will honor the sacrifice of every fallen hero.
No, indeed, they did not.
Family who lost a loved one, and every wounded warrior who shed their blood in defense of...
I thought the cat was grabbing me. Hi, I love you. Almost done.
Our great nation. With our resolve, we will ensure that your service and that your families will bring about the defeat of our enemies and the arrival of peace. We will push onward to victory with power
No, you won't.
in our hearts.
With what? With power in our hearts?
We will push onward to victory with power in our hearts.
With power in our hearts.
Courage in our souls, and everlasting pride in each and every one of you. Thank you. May God bless our military, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Very nervous fellow ending his speech. This is one of the few speeches where they, played Hail to the Chief and, before he got hooked on YMCA.
And with that, President Trump has concluded what he called a new strategy for the United States in...
Which is the same fucking strategy. Same thing. Same thing. Can we just recognize, we all just watched it again. This is that was his 2017 speech on his new strategy in Afghanistan, shifting from a time-based, plan to, which he ultimately just signed off on the plan on May 1st, to a conditions on the ground-based strategy, which provided conditions that could never be met and that he never intended to meet, thanks to Dan Bongino, who is looking for a teepee for his bunghole.